Chairman Corin, Chairman Hardy, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today on this important topic. I began focusing on the Afghan issue in 2021 as US forces withdrew from Afghanistan. Like many Americans, I watched the images of packed aircrafts and the chaos at the Kabul airport. During that summer, around 80,000 Afghan nationals were evacuated by the Biden-Harris administration under a program called Operation Allies Refuge. But despite the program's name, and contrary to the prevailing narrative, the majority of those airlifted and those who followed were not US allies. Most had no connection to the US government, military, or any US contractor or subcontractor. The term allies has indeed been used and misused. The former administration did not stop with the initial evacuation. It went on to create multiple additional pathways for Afghans to enter the United States, ultimately bringing the total number of arrivals to more than 200,000. Most evacuees did not possess visas to be admitted into the US, nor were they eligible for special immigrant visas, which are specifically reserved for Afghan allies, or for refugee statuses available to persecuted Afghans. As a result, the administration relied on parole to allow them into the US. Immigration parole is an official permission to enter and remain temporarily in the US and should be only granted on a case-by-case basis. The legality of the prior administration's expansive use of parole has been widely questioned. Once processed, parolees were resettled into American communities and were exceptionally granted the same federal benefits as refugees and SIVs, including work authorization, health insurance, cash assistance, housing support, and more. They were also provided federally funded immigration legal services to help them seek asylum or other permanent legal statuses. These benefits were not limited to the 80,000 individuals who were hastily evacuated. Most who had arrived later under Biden's alternate pathways, who are also not our allies or persecuted refugees, were similarly granted parole with the same benefits. All this came at a significant cost to US taxpayers, with estimates reaching up to $14 billion. I want to address the issue of vetting before I conclude. We know of the absence of dependable screening measures for nationals from conflict zones, such as Afghans and Syrians, and of the impossible task of cross-checking backgrounds. But beyond terrorist attack threats on US ground, there are other important implications. A couple of years ago, I wrote about a young Afghan evacuee who was arrested less than 2 months after his arrival for engaging in prohibited sexual conduct with a minor and possessing child pornography images. Most of the mitigating circumstances presented by the defense to get leniency at sentencing touched on his cultural difference. According to his lawyer, some sexual conduct that is deemed criminal in the US is considered acceptable in Afghanistan. Even if he was indeed regularly screened, as many who advocate for countless Afghan admissions claim, and all the documents pertaining to his judicial history in Afghanistan were available, he would still have been cleared to enter the US. In this young man's case, nothing was missed because there was probably nothing to find. His village in rural Afghanistan does not have a regularized criminal justice system. Disputes there are resolved through inter-family mediation. This case illustrates a broader truth. It is naive and perhaps arrogant to assume that newcomers will automatically leave their beliefs, norms, and biases behind. Which brings us to a fundamental question. If we are not primarily welcoming US allies or persecuted refugees, who exactly are we admitting and why? There are millions of Afghans who are not at risk, but may nonetheless wish to leave their country under Taliban rule. Afghanistan has a population of roughly 38 million people. How many should the United States welcome, and on what basis? Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.